Now it's been a little bit since I made one of these videos, so I figured it's time for part number 3 of 10 Brutal IndyCar crashes. Similar to the first 2, there are no fatal accidents in this compilation. The drivers in these wrecks were either uninjured or did sustain injuries, but all of them would race again. With that being said, let's get right into number 10. This is the most recent one on the list, in fact, the one that kind of inspired me to make a part number 3, but Simon Pagenaud was practicing for the 2023 race at Mid-Ohio when he would lose his brakes. Going into turn number 4, this would result in him going off the track and flipping violently through the gravel, similar to Michael Andretti, who had a nearly identical wreck in the exact same spot in 1998.
Oh! Wow. Huge credit to the aero screen. We get another long shot of it. We did see some tire smoke, but it's unclear if that would be from a locked tire. More than likely, that would have been Simon trying to get. Oh my goodness. You can see his hands pulled back to his chest, probably grabbing his shoulder belts. And again, I'm going to go back to the good news of that, if there is any, is that that is energy dissipation and it's deceleration of the race car before he gets to that narrow tire stack and the concrete barrier.
Thankfully, Simon Pagenaud climbed out of the car and he was uninjured. However, the IndyCar medical team would not clear him to race on Sunday as a precautionary measure, so Connor Daly would fill in for him for the race. In the morning warm-up for the 1992 race at Long Beach, Scott Pruett had this huge accident in turn number 1 where his front brakes failed as he was entering the corner.
Everything appeared to be normal, but watch though as he headed down into the very first corner, which is a hard right-hander. Passing under the Texaco Bridge just ahead, downshifting, and suddenly, and the car head-on into the tire barrier at the end. Now looking at it again, apparently what happened was the front brakes failed on the car, because if you watch that front tire, it never stopped rolling. Scott brushed it into the wall, got it pointed back straight, and wisely took the tire barrier right straight on, which is the safest way to take it.
Thankfully, Scott Pruett was all right with no injuries, and he would go on to race where he would finish 9th. The 2000 kart race at Laguna Seca saw Patrick Carpentier have one of the craziest wrecks you'll ever see in qualifying, where he literally backflipped over the entire wall before landing upside down. Thankfully, Patrick Carpentier was okay, he just had some minor neck soreness, but he was cleared to drive right away. However, as a result of this wreck, there ended up being a 54-minute delay as a sanctioning body and drivers got together to discuss safety concerns. Some minor changes were completed at the track, and the weekend went ahead as scheduled.
Let's take you back to what happened here on Friday afternoon in first qualifying. Looking at Patrick Carpentier, he went off at turn number 4. The car hit the gravel track backwards, took off slightly, hit the tyres, and look at this. It vaulted clean over that catch fencing. An amazing accident. And fortunately, let me tell you, Patrick Carpentier was okay. Now, it caused a lot of anxiety amongst the drivers. They asked for some changes to be made to the gravel traps around the course. Kart responded to that, and we're all set to go racing here this afternoon at Laguna Seca.
The 2005 Indianapolis 500 saw Bruno Junqueira have this vicious head-on hit into the outside wall after contact with A.J. Foyt IV.
He got clipped? Absolutely clipped. Junqueira had the right of way. The slower car needs to stay high and just shoots him into the wall. That's probably at 215 miles an hour, Todd. And I can tell you, that is an absolute huge hit.
Well, I made mention this is a bad crash. Any crash at this place is terrible. At that speed, watch it one more time as he comes to the inside.
Looks like possibly the ABC car of Foyt. See, Foyt needs to be told by his spotter right now that he's coming underneath him. Yep. Foyt looks like he is coming down proper lane, but maybe Junqueira is just a little bit high, trying to drive him up too high and not give him enough space. You know, it's a very tight call right there, but both of them are going for the same place. But definitely Foyt needs to get off the throttle just a little bit, because when they're off the pace like that and those guys are flying, you don't want to give up any time whatsoever. That is a huge, huge hit.
Unfortunately, Bruno Junqueira was injured in this accident as he suffered a concussion and fractured vertebrae and would require surgery, which he would have the next day. This was also rather unfortunate because this was a one-off event in the IRL for Bruno Junqueira, as he was currently the Champ Car points leader coming into this event. He would not race the remainder of the 2005 season, but would return to the cockpit in 2006. Unfortunately for Patrick Carpentier, he's going to make this list again, but this time qualifying at Road America in 1999, where he would lock up the rear wheels going into turn number 1, slide into the gravel trap, and flip viciously into the tire barrier. Thankfully, Patrick Carpentier was uninjured in this one too, just some minor stiffness, and he would race in a backup car.
Yesterday, he provided us with one of the most breathtaking rides we've seen all season and, in fact, in many years. Down the front straightaway, rear wheels locked, 200 miles per hour, sideways, into the sand, then barrel rolling 5 full times into a tire barrier. Unfortunately and amazingly, he walked away without injury. Now he has to go to the backup car and start all over again. This car was 3rd quick in this morning's practice. We'll see if he can get it up front for tomorrow's running of the Texaco Havoline 200.
The 2005 IRL race at Chicagoland Speedway saw Ryan Briscoe have one of the scariest IndyCar wrecks of all time as he got up into the catch fence, similar to how Kenny Brack did just 2 years prior, as the car just absolutely disintegrates when it hits the fence.
Well, here it is again. Here's how they come into 3, Scotty.
Actually, you can see on the very underside what a ride that was. Remember we had last year with Buddy Rice getting airborne coming out of turn 2 when they touched wheels. And here's the situation. Briscoe going underneath. Barron trying to come down on the racetrack. They both are going for the same piece of real estate. And what ends up happening is those rubber tires touch, and then all of a sudden the car starts to go in the air. Remember, we're going 215 miles an hour. Look at all the debris that's going all around the racetrack. This will be a long cleanup time. And there's the engine separated from both the transmission and the monocoque where the driver sits. That's what we call kitty litter right there going on the racetrack, Todd, to dry up all that oil that starts to come off of those vehicles.
Let's look at this one more time and see if we can see the genesis of this accident.
Now looking straight ahead, you can see the cars just starting to come together. A little bit of rub, smoke coming off the tires when they touch. And then all of a sudden, as we're riding on board Scott Dixon's car, he sees this. He was actually a spectator in the crash just last year. Now watch those left side wheels. Those are down on the flat underneath the white line. He did a great job keeping that car straight with 2 wheels on the 18-degree banking, 2 wheels on the flat down on the entrance.
Oh my, look at that. And that is the fence by the safer barrier.
Despite this horrific crash, Ryan Briscoe managed to not have any major severe injuries. He did end up breaking both clavicles and he was transported to the hospital for further evaluation. When he was released, he would actually travel to Italy, where he would spend the bulk of his 8-week rehabilitation recovering from this accident. Obviously, due to this, he would miss the final 2 races of the 2005 IRL season. Unfortunately, this would also be his last race with Ganassi, as he was dropped for the 2006 season, where he would race part-time for Dreyer and Reinbold Racing. The 2023 Indianapolis 500 saw this scary accident involving Kyle Kirkwood and Felix Rosenqvist. Rosenqvist got into the outside wall and lost control, tagging Kirkwood as he went by. Kirkwood flipped into the outside wall, but even more scary, his rear wheel flew off his car over the catch fence and right between the grandstands and a building, which were both packed full of fans. Someone could have easily been killed here, which was very, very scary, but thankfully no one was injured.
You see Joseph Newgarden on the outside of Felix Rosenqvist, moves that shell car.
Oh!
Felix in the wall, big time.
This is going to be a big hit right here. I don't know if he's going to keep it out of the turn 2 wall. Oh, no! Kirkwood!
Ooh. Kirkwood upside down. Guys, this will be a red flag, almost certainly. Huge impact.
Felix Rosenqvist crashed and spun.
Fall out of the car. Sit tight.
And Kyle Kirkwood had nowhere to go. Right-hand side of your screen is Rosenqvist. Newgarden goes around him, getting a little high.
Yeah, when the car in front of you comes down, it takes a bit of the air off your front wing. You lose some front grip. Joseph left him some room on the bottom. It's not like he took all the racetrack, you see that, but Felix just getting in the dirty air. And then, yeah, once you hit that
point, that right front steering arm is broken, and he can't steer the car. He's out of control and just a passenger. And here comes Kyle Kirkwood, almost avoids it as the left rear comes off. And a vicious crash for Kirkwood. Cockpit first along the safer barrier.
Looking outside, nothing behind him.
See, what I want to see from Felix there is be down below the white line. You know that Joseph's going to come down, and here it just spins it. Oh.
Thankfully, Kyle Kirkwood and Felix Rosenqvist were uninjured in this accident, and as I mentioned earlier, no fans were injured on the outside of the track due to that wheel flying over the catch fence. It did, however, strike a parked car, which was a Chevy Cruze that this lady owned, and she was such a good sport about it. And as many would expected, and probably the right thing to do, the folks at IMS did replace her car with a brand new 2023 Chevy Equinox. The IRL's 1997 Las Vegas 500K saw Roberto Guerrero have this wild accident as he flips down the back straightaway. Marco Greco checked up in front of him and Guerrero could not slow down in time, and he drove right into the back of him, which launched him in the air. He flipped over onto his lid, and once he got into that grass, the car dug in and he flipped violently. Thankfully, he was alright, and he was able to get out of the car before the safety crew even arrived there, despite it being upside down.
The pieces are small enough, it won't be hard to get the car out of the way. Wow, look at that thing.
Oh my goodness.
Well, what happened?
Pitched it in the air.
Well, he got the crossover road. There's a piece of pavement that went right through that grass area. He got down on the infield onto the grass and then clipped the road that entered the infield area that tripped the car and got it upside down.
On-board camera. This is Roberto.
He's heading down into turn 1 right now.
Happened off of 2.
Oh, wow. Look at that thing pointing straight in the air.
Well, that was Greco.
Well, he slowed dramatically, and Roberto didn't quite catch it quick enough, and then he caught some other stuff.
Yeah, and that road just starts flipping him. You know, Nellis Air Force Base, home of the demonstration team, the Air Force Thunderbirds, right across the street. They probably said, go ahead, just go ahead and apply power and get her out of here.
Yeah, that might have showed
straight up.
That might have showed up on the radar.
Oh.
The 2001 kart race at Road America saw Memo Gidley have one of the most vicious wrecks in turn 13. There used to be a bridge located in turn 13 at Road America, which has since been removed, but the angle of where the bridge was left a concrete wall close to the side of the racetrack just on the outside of the turn, and that's exactly where Memo Gidley hit. His car would flip violently and would land upside down. The safety team actually had to cut the nose of the car off to help extract Memo Gidley from the wreckage. Amazingly, he would only suffer minor injuries, and he would not miss any races. And unfortunately, we never really got a good angle of this accident on the broadcast after he made contact with the bridge.
Oh my God, look at the damage to that car there. That's terrifying. That car's broken completely in half. They did cut the remainder of it. It was badly damaged. It wasn't that badly damaged, fortunately, when Memo came to rest, but there was a lot of damage. They have cut that car apart to get him out of it, and we hear that he is conscious. He has been communicating with the safety team, and he is now on his way to the CART Medical Center.
Obviously, the hit was completely at the wrong angle because the front wing is still on at the front nose there, but that split where they are split at the front of the cockpit there, that is not how that is supposed to break apart there, even though they've cut it apart since. But
yeah, they call the jaws of life there to cut that part. But here's some replays. Here's a camera here at the bridge above. And you just see he loses control going into the corner. He overcorrects the car and heads on there. And, oh God, here we are on board. This is coming through the kink here. This is into Canada corner now. He's onto the brakes. We'll watch him go up the hill here. This is kink to the right, and then we'll listen as he comes up into turn 13 now. Ouch. And you can see that I think he just strayed a wheel onto, you can see him there, just a little wave there from him. That's great news from him. He has a lot of support. He's a very popular driver, is Memo Gidley. He started the sport relatively late. He went to the Jim Russell School out at Laguna Seca Raceway and enrolled there as a mechanic. That's how he got his start in the sport. Also in go-karting as well. He drove for many years. In fact, even up until a year or so ago, he drove for Track Magic karts in major karting events, and he's made his way all the way up into the champ cars with absolutely no money behind him all the way. Just talent and ability and desire.
And we have finally made it to number 1 on the list, and this one happened in 1984 at Michigan in the kart series. As Chip Ganassi would lose control off turn number 2, collect Al Unser Jr. and the 2 would slide down to the inside wall, where Chip Ganassi's car would flip violently and burst into what seemed like a million pieces. And looking at this wreck, it looks extremely bad, and chances of survival pretty slim.
Report is that Al Unser Jr. looks okay. Bobby, let's look at it again. They come onto the backstretch. Ganassi looks like he gets off the wall and collects little Al.
Yes, he definitely broke something, and just take little Al right down with him, but he obviously broke something on his car because the car just made an immediate turn.
And they hit the road. I think, really, you've just seen the top of the car coming off. That's indicating the car flip. But that's the nasty one. As Ganassi hits the fence, catches the barrier, car was in the air, looked like the top of the car slams into the barrier.
For Chip's car, it was a very bad wreck. It looks like little Al's car stayed right side up through the whole thing, as near as I can tell, Paul.
This has been a nasty section of the Michigan Speedway course. We'll talk about that in a moment. See, he just turns. Apparently something breaks. Al collects it.
Yes, it did. There was no place for Al to go, and see, Chip was just continually going down and just holding little Al there, and there's nothing either driver can do anything about.
Watch this. This will give us an idea, too, of that's just the top coming off the car, but as they get across that ditch, Chip gets high into the air and slams into the barrier, oscillates in the air. Tremendous accident. The car badly damaged, literally cut in half there.
That's a bad accident, Paul.
Chip Ganassi suffered severe head injuries in this accident, and he was knocked unconscious. When legendary kart doctor Steve Alvey arrived on the scene, he honestly thought all hope was lost. Right when he was about to administer CPR to Chip Ganassi, he began to breathe again and regained his consciousness. Chip was airlifted to the University of Michigan Hospital so he could be treated for his injuries. Chip did have some short-term memory loss from this, but he would go on to make a full recovery, but this would be the end of his full-time driving career. However, the very next year, he would return to the driver's seat for the Indianapolis 500. Well, that's gonna wrap up today's video. I hope you enjoyed this glimpse into the dangers of IndyCar racing. This is the third part in this series, and if you missed the first 2 videos, you can find them in the description below. If you love motorsports history, especially IndyCar, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It's completely free. If you want to interact with me, you can follow me on social media, and just do me one last favor and hit that thumbs up button if you enjoyed this one. Take care, and I'll see you next week.